Hi, I'm Mia Friedman and welcome to No Filter. When was the last time you bought a packet of tampons or pads? Do you remember how much they cost? Did you shop around looking for the cheapest possible option? Did you have to weigh up your priorities between, say, feeding your kids or bleeding all over your clothes? This will be a choice thousands of Australian women who are homeless or living in extreme poverty will have to make today. What will they choose? What price their dignity? Rochelle Courtenay is a personal trainer with 2 kids. In 2016, she read a story on Mamamia about the plight of homeless women who couldn't afford to buy tampons or pads. She was shocked. She'd never thought about this before. But she didn't just share or like the post or leave a comment saying, "So sad." She did much more than that. And because of what she did next, Rochelle changed lives. She made the world a better place for women and for girls. And she's continuing to change lives. Mamamia is so proud to support Share the Dignity by sharing this conversation with Rochelle. I hope after listening to it, you'll also support Share the Dignity and Rochelle's incredible work. I think you'll find this conversation as eye-opening as I did. Rochelle, how are you?
I'm great.
It's good that the first thing we talked about when I saw you is our periods and how our Mirena IUDs are affecting them. Is it Mirena or Marina?
I say Marina. Makes me sound a little bit nautical, doesn't it?
I'm Marina Friedman. Yes. So it's no accident that we just started talking about periods because you have made periods your life.
The pad
essentially.
lady.
How did it begin?
Well, 2 years ago, I read an article online that was written by Mamamia that talked about homelessness and the fact that our homeless women and women who have escaped domestic violence didn't have the basic of necessities like pads and tampons. And I just couldn't believe that I was reading that was happening in Australia and that no one had done anything about it.
So this is a bit full circle. You read about it on Mamamia.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about it.
Absolutely.
So I read a lot of things that make me surprised or shocked or sad. And then usually, I might share it in the hope that maybe someone else will do something about it or I'll like it. Yeah. And then I'll kind of move on because there's a lot. But you didn't do that. How come?
I think as we had just discussed, I had really bad endometriosis and I couldn't even imagine not having the basic of necessities, let alone a shower, a bath, hot chocolate and somebody to cry to. So I couldn't imagine not having pads and tampons. And I just thought if I could ask people, I was so empathetic to that, I think was the end result to that. And I didn't want my daughters reading about that in 10 years' time and going, oh, look at that, that's happening in Australia. Oh, no one's done anything about it. So literally just asked my friends and our local our community to do something about it, put a box in the local councillor's office and went from there.
Because I have to say, when it comes to homelessness, it's not something I'd ever read about before or ever thought about before. The idea of having to choose between food or shelter and tampons and pads. So what were these women doing instead?
I'll tell you a story of a volunteer of ours who volunteers with us because she understands what it's about. She used to buy a 99-cent packet of napkins, of black and white gold napkins to be able to use.
Like home brand napkins from the supermarket.
To get through her period because she had 2 children to feed. So, it's not unusual for them to use wadded up toilet paper, to use socks. Like, where's the hygiene and the dignity in that? It's just unbelievable, the stories that you hear.
So how did you go sort of calling counsellors and saying, hey, in your council office, can you have a box that women can donate tampons into? I mean, it's not something that's usually spoken about, is it?
No, but I didn't have any resistance at all. And I think everybody went, oh, my God. It was that, oh, I'd never thought of that. I think we're still hearing that, oh, my God, I've never thought of that. That moment where that people become empathetic. We've had some fantastic support from males as well. So,
Had you ever met a homeless person before then?
No.
So then how did you cross the line between, doing a bit of a gather round, donate your tampons, to founding Share the Dignity?
So when we collected in the first one, so March 2015, we collected 450 packets of pads and tampons and we were high-fiving ourselves. We thought that was amazing. But it didn't take long, obviously, for them to be gone.
This is in and around Brisbane?
Yes, just in our north side of Brisbane. So I think we have to remember that it's not like we're giving a woman a warm jacket and it keeps her warm for years. It's a monthly problem. So it was about May in 2015 when one of my friends who had worked in domestic violence said, do you have any more? Can we get some more? And so I'd never really given it another thought. So I never, ever went out to be the pad lady. So I then posted on our Facebook page. At that stage, we probably had 300 people. Now we have like 92,000 people on that Facebook page. And it just went viral. So then I started to hear stories of a woman that I talked to in Darwin who wanted to volunteer and make it easier for us. And she worked in a petrol station, and she talked about how women would come in, they would actually bleed across the floor, steal the packet of pads and go into the bathroom, clean themselves up and then walk away. And she would have to just turn her cheek on the fact that she couldn't, hook them for stealing or anything like that. So that story made me go, well, I can't not do it. I can't not do it in Darwin. I can't not do it. I'd hear other stories from other people in different states. So, whilst it would have been easy to just continue on with the life that I had, we then had to find collection points all across Australia, which were verandas at that point. They were people's verandas that put their hand up and said, I want to help. Now we have every Terry White chemist on board, every Fernwood Fitness, every Brazilian Beauty. We have our White Lady Funerals who are on board. So we've made it really easy to collect. And all of those corporates came on in a heartbeat. They were like, oh my God, I can't even believe that this is happening, and made it really easy.
Tell me about the dignity part, because the story you tell about the woman going into the service station and bleeding on the floor, and the woman buying the napkins, and the women having to shove socks in their undies. How did you come up with the name? Because you're right, all of those stories speak of a lack of dignity, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. So if we could just the name just came organically at the very beginning. So it was just, let's all just share the dignity that's needed by not having to go without the basic of necessities. We've all had that accident, right? You know how that makes you feel in yourself. Like, you don't feel very dignified when oh God, I remember 100 times over how many times I've had accidents. Yeah. And I have a home and a shower and a bathroom to go to. So you walk from one end of the office to the other, and then you realise you got a stain on the back of your pants, and it's like, oh, that's awkward. Yeah, absolutely. But, at the end of the day, I couldn't even imagine what that would feel like if I never knew when I was going to get to a bathroom, or I never knew when I was going to be able to have a shower, or when I was going to get my hands on pads or tampons. Tell me about some of the women you've met, because a lot of the men who are homeless tend to have mental illnesses. I'm generalising. Yeah. But with women, it's not necessarily the case, is it? No, it's not. A lot of the women that are homeless due to domestic violence, and that's the number one issue, and the lack of affordable housing. So, which kind of goes hand in hand, right? But there is this massive increase in homelessness for women over the age of 55. So, how does it happen? Well, how do you become homeless? So for those women, the most normal, the circumstance to understand is that they've probably lived in domestic violence. They've raised their children. They've gone, okay, enough's enough, but they don't have any super. They have not worked, and so they're not skill-based as well, like we want in our workforce. And there's no affordable housing. So, what are they doing? I don't know how they end up homeless. What's happened to our village? What's happened to their daughters and their children and their cousins? I don't know. And women are so proud, like you won't find homelessness and women sleeping the streets like you do men. So they're not as visible. They'll be sleeping in their cars, or they'll be couch surfing. And there is that undertone of some women will sleep with somebody in order to get a bed for the night. So, and many of them have children. Yes. Well, yes. But those women are sleeping in their cars. Like I met a woman at the Homeless Connect on the Gold Coast 2 years ago, and she talked about how living in her car with her two children, who she drove from New South Wales to the Gold Coast, where she could shower and no one would take any different. She could barbecue on the beach. Her kids were at school the day that I met her, and she talked about how she had found a tampon on the floor in a surf club throughout the month, and she'd got her period that day. So she was crying at my feet like I was some sort of Santa Claus of pads and tampons. And we talked for a while, and she said that living in her car was better than living in the hell that she had lived in. And at that stage, I asked her why she'd never called the 1-800-RESPECT number, not knowing at all. I'm not coming from an educated place of working in this space ever. Social services. Yeah. And she said she didn't know about the 1-800-RESPECT number. And as we were talking about that, I was handing her a packet of tampons. And I thought, how cool would it be if we put the number on the inside of the tampon packs? And now in every Cotton's tampon packs, that number's there. So we hope that more women know the number so that we can help change the number of women who are living in domestic violence. But then we open up another can of worms where do they go?
Where do they go? What are support services like for homeless women?
Well, there's just not enough places, is there? So for women, I know in Queensland, we spend about $46,000 a week on putting them into hotels because we don't have anywhere else for them to go. So our infrastructure is just not okay. So we're asking them to leave, but then we don't have anywhere for them to go. We collected 107,000 handbags to give out to homeless women and to women who'd fled domestic violence at Christmas time, which is fabulous. But I'd like to think that we didn't have that need. We don't have any handbags left.
So there were 107,000 women, firstly, who put together a handbag. Tell me about that drive.
So we did the It's in the Bag Christmas appeal, which we do each year. So we're asking people to give a pre-loved handbag and to fill it with sanitary items, shampoos, conditioners, toothbrushes, and all those things that you would need should you be fleeing domestic violence or homeless. And so 107,000 women gave with their heart. It was amazing. But it makes me really sad to say that we don't have any handbags left because we were able to get them out to every domestic violence shelter, every homeless refuge, to drought-stricken farmers.
Oh, how does this not take over your life, or has it? And what's been the effect?
I think the purpose of my life is very different now. So I am very blessed. We have a massive volunteer base, so remember that I don't do this on my own. So we have about 1,500 volunteers that we like to call Shiros.
And what do the Shiros do?
So they are the reason that we can share the dignity. So if you're for our Shiro that is in Bendigo, I can't collect the pads and tampons in Bendigo. Like they set up the collection box, they count the pads and tampons, and they get them out to the shelters and to the homelessness hubs where they are. So same with the handbags. We call it the It's in the Bag workout. Most of those handbags weighed about 10 kilos, so we moved 107,000 of them. It was massive.
And they were actually handed to each woman.
Yeah,
in most cases.
And we had to check them. So we had to check that there were no razors or foods or anything that shouldn't be in there. So
this is all done on a completely voluntary basis, including you.
Yes.
You receive no government funding.
No, we don't. We create all of our own funds.
How do you do that?
Through our events. So we have our high tea on World Menstrual Hygiene Day on the 28th of May. So we hold those events all over Australia. We do a Yoga for Dignity, which is very new this year. So we hope to have 48,000 women, men and children attending yoga on the 2nd of September to unite. Anybody can do yoga. It's not like we're asking to give up your whole weekend and walk 60 kilometres and raise thousands of dollars. It's $20 to participate, and we can really make a difference by doing that as well. So there's some of our events that happen throughout the year, and that's how we continue to do the work that we do.
And then what's happening in April?
So April is what we call our Dignity Drive. So we have 2,200 collection points across Australia. So it's really easy to donate. So at every Terry White chemist, at every Brazilian Beauty, at every Foamwood Fitness, at every White Lady Funerals, and then some participating Coles and Australian Hearing Centres, and then local businesses. They have been amazing. So there are collection boxes there. If you can't get to a collection box or you're time poor, just go online and donate. Every $2 that you donate makes a difference to somebody.
Rochelle, how do you support yourself through all of this? Like, financially, you've got to live. You've got 2 kids yourself. How does your life work?
Well, I still have my personal training business, so when I'm home. So I work from 5 till my first client's 5:30, and they're every half an hour, and then I put my Share the Dignity hat on about lunchtime and go off and have my meetings. And now I have managed to get all of my clients into 3 days as opposed to, and I try to do what I can on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And what are the plans for the future of Share the Dignity?
We would like to be made redundant. Thank you. That'd be great. So that's
your goal.
Yeah, that's
Isn't that
never
a funny dream?
Yeah, that's never going to happen. Unfortunately, as long as people keep donating to our collection drives, we are just about to roll out our first free vending machines. So 20 of them are about to go throughout Australia in April, and we're really excited about that because there's never been anything like this before. So
how are they going to work?
So they are, you press a button, a little 2-pack of pads and 4 tampons come out, and then it's 10 minutes before the next one can be dispersed. And that just stops people from wastage. But we need to make sure that we're getting them into the homelessness hubs. So in Perth, for example, that's going into a library. So we know that when women are getting their kids to school or they're homeless, that they tend to be in the library a lot. So for some of them, we're getting them into poverty-stricken schools. For girls to not go to school because their family can't afford the basic of necessities is not okay.
That's something you hear about in third world countries.
Yeah.
About girls not being educated because they can't go to school when they've got their period. It's happening in Australia.
It's happening in Australia. And we're talking about yesterday, we are literally doing a call out for a school because they're the 10 and 12-year-olds. So girls are actually getting younger. So while we're thinking about putting them into high schools, we also need to be thinking about putting them into primary schools as well. And I mean, for me, people will say, oh, what about people who will abuse the fact that they're free? What are we going to do with pads and tampons? Really build a house with them? You know, like if I have had an accident and I see a free vending machine, I will take that and I will thank you and I'll raise you when I get home. I'll probably donate $20. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, we can't sit in fear that people are going to abuse the system. We really need to look at how do we fix the fact that girls are not going to school and that women are using socks in their underpants to deal with pads and tampons. So it is an Australian first. It's a world first. So we're actually up for an innovation award for it, which is very exciting. But at the end of the day, let's hope that no child should not be able to be at school because she's got her period.
What surprised you most about meeting homeless women?
Their normality. The fact that they are just like, they look like you and I. They're not, the lady in a terry toweling dress that lives at the caravan park. They look like you and I, and every one of them has a story, and they just want to be heard. Can you think of some of the more memorable stories that you've been told and women that you've met? Yeah, I'll never forget the story of the woman who was in a wheelchair. And she was about 55, and she had a little white fluffy dog on her, and she was using cut up nappies from her grandson because she didn't have incontinence pads, and incontinence pads are ridiculously expensive. But she was at that stage at Common Ground, which is somewhere in Brisbane in West End, but they were going to have to... She wasn't going to be able to live there anymore because she didn't want to not live with her dog. And that's not uncommon. We can tell you that we're putting a vending machine into a placement in Brisbane, and there was a lady asleep on the couch upstairs with her dog, and the woman who we were talking to about the vending machine said no, she would rather sleep during the day and be awake at night as long as she has her dog with her. So, like every story, everyone has their story, but it's just phenomenal to see that they look like you and I. And that's one of the things that we talk about with domestic violence, is that everyone thinks that it's somebody else, but it's your next door neighbour. Have you stayed in touch with any of them? Have you sort of watched people's stories? It must be very hard to sort of disconnect. How do you do that? Yeah, it's really hard, actually. I think one of the ladies that I met that I keep in contact with lived in a dumpster. So she literally would hide in a dumpster at night to try to stay away. And she had fled domestic violence from, she had driven down here, but she was living in a dumpster. And I just said, we literally helped her to get out of that and to get housing. And that is a connection that I never want to break. How is she now? Yeah, she's good. She's good. And, that has to come with some trauma as well. Of course. From living in domestic violence, but also the fact that there isn't any help. Do you know what I mean? And also how unsafe it is for women on this homeless women. Absolutely. I mean, they've got issues that homeless men don't even have to worry about. Yeah. Yeah. She was terrified. Yeah. So there are too many stories to tell. So what's the best way for people to help? So to spread the word. It is the biggest thing that we can do. There isn't a woman in Australia, and we have millions of women who live in Australia who just still don't know about Share the Dignity. So Share the Dignity on Facebook, liking the page is probably the best way to stay informed about events, collection points. Stories, like as soon as we find out a story and we share it with you, that's that heart connecting to another heart, and I think that's the most powerful thing that we do. Yeah, I adore the posts that you put up on the Share the Dignity page. I absolutely... find them so, you get all these things in your Facebook feed, and then I read something from Share the Dignity and it really just puts everything into perspective. Yeah, it does. It grounds you. It makes you, oh my God, I don't have enough bread. I have to go to the shop to get it. Hey, perspective.
Yeah.
Someone doesn't have a home tonight.
Hey, Rochelle, you're a phenomenal woman. You're a kick-ass woman doing kick-ass things of kick-assery. And I'm just so proud for the tiny role that Mamma Mia has played in you dedicating your life to this extraordinary cause. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. It wouldn't be here if you hadn't have written about it in the first place.
This episode of No Filter was brought to you by Telstra Smart Home. Telstra brings you the magic of technology with Smart Home, a clever little app that lets you manage your home from anywhere, even this podcast studio as I'm doing right now. Thanks for listening to No Filter. If you want to donate some pads or tampons, you can go to sharethedignity.com.au/Dignity Drive to find out where your closest collection point is. You can buy any book that's been mentioned in our podcasts from iBooks at apple.co/Mamma Mia. And this is where you can also subscribe to all our other shows in one place. And after you subscribe, can I ask a huge favour? Can you leave a review for this podcast or any of the Mamma Mia podcasts that you've listened to? 5 stars would be nice, but 4 stars would also be good. But it's these reviews that help more people find out about our podcasts and help us to keep bringing them to you for free and to help spreading the word about amazing people like Rochelle and amazing causes like Share the Dignity. If you want all our podcasts in one place, you can, of course, download the Mamma Mia podcast app, which is great. It'll make your phone look better. It'll make your life better. It won't provide tampons to homeless women, but, we can't all bear a shell, can we? If you want to suggest a guest or just ask me a question, please call the pod phone on 02 8999 9386, and you don't have to donate your eggs, although someone that did call the pod phone after listening to an episode of No Filter where I interviewed Jason Brunston and Aaron Elias, who just had a surrogate baby with a Thai surrogate mother and donor eggs from one of Aaron's really close friends. A listener listened to that podcast and was so moved by it that she rang up and offered her eggs to them. And my daughter, when she listened to it, didn't offer her eggs, but said to me, "Mum, I didn't know you could get ball cancer." So that was a good conversation to have, but it's very important. If you've got anyone in your life with testicles, it would be a good idea to encourage them to check them. Or you could check them for them, depending on whether that's appropriate or not. What else have I got to say? Oh, if you don't want to do anything on the phone, because I don't, you can email at podcast@mammamia.com.au. Today's show was produced by Eliza Ratliff for the Mamma Mia Women's Network. Eliza is currently wearing the most spectacular fluorescent pink and white jacket from south of the border, which looks so amazing on her. She really rocks a print. We own many of the same clothes, including that jacket. And the executive podcaster... no, that's wrong. The executive producer of podcasts is Monique Bowley, who has a gold bum bag, which she is too embarrassed to wear out of the house. Unlike me, who have style stalked Monique and gone and bought that gold bum bag from Typo, and I've pretty much not taken mine off for 2 months, even when I went to the beach. Our head of entertainment is Holly Wainwright, and she likes to wear navy a lot. She really rocks all shades of blue, really suits her. That's pretty much all I've got to tell you about what everyone's wearing at the moment. I'm Mia Friedman. You can buy my book, Work-Strife Balance. Please do, and tell me what you think of it. Tell a friend, and remember that sharing is caring. Lots of love. I will see you all over the interweb, and until next time, bye.